crafting the most powerful sales questions ever. In this video, which has been taken from the salesman.org archives, you're going to learn how to craft selling questions that get a clear response from potential buyers so that you can always move the deal forward by just having a little bit of a conversation with them. Asking powerful sales questions can often eliminate the chances of you getting objections too. So you get a double whammy in this video. So the first step to crafting incredible questions is to understand what you want from the buyer. This seems way too simple, right? Well, from my experience, listening to a lot of sales calls, sellers tend to ask questions that have zero value to either the buyer or to themselves. Asking a question that doesn't serve a clear purpose, either helping them, adding value to the buyer, or helping you by driving information your way, is just a waste of everyone's time. So let me give you a quick example with 3 common questions that needy salespeople often ask right at the beginning of a sales call. This is what we shouldn't be doing. People ask, what do you already know about our products? Poor salespeople ask, what are your top 3 goals for the year? And additionally, here's another one. What is your budget? Terrible questions. Each one of these questions is a poor attempt to learn about the buyer's needs. So let's take a quick look at how a meeting started with each one of these questions might play out. So if you ask the question to get started, what do you already know about our products? Well, the buyer's initial reaction is probably to pull out a folder of information that they printed from your website that everyone has access to, and they're going to try and make it clear that, well, they've done their research before the meeting. The buyer's then going to flip through their notepad and run through a long series of objections before they answer any more questions from you. The next question, what are your top 3 goals for the year? In this scenario, the buyer's probably going to have the initial reaction to take a second to pause and think. And then they're going to talk for 15 minutes, giving details about the history of their organisation, where they are currently, and the vision for the department's growth. None of which is going to have anything to do with the product you sell. It's going to be a total waste of time for the both of you. Finally, with the what is your budget question? Well, most of the time the buyer's going to be offended by this question. They're going to respond by saying, hey, we just friggin' met and you're already trying to get every single penny from me that you possibly can. The seller at this point, you, me, whoever's dumb enough to ask this question, is going to defend themselves by explaining, well, they just didn't want to waste anyone's time. They were trying to get down to business straight away. And the buyer's going to cross their arms and a weird, awkward conversation is going to follow. So hopefully these examples show how easy it is to ruin a potentially great selling conversation with poor selling questions. The point being, you've got to ask good questions. You have to, otherwise you're dead in the water. So let's take a look at the structure of great questions. So with question structure, the good news is that all of it's relatively straightforward. Questions can only really take 2 forms. They can even be open-ended or close-ended. And the difference between the two is that close-ended questions can be answered with, and typically are answered with, a yes or a no, whilst open-ended questions invite the buyer, the person you're asking them to, give a longer answer. Each question has a specific purpose. Let's run through them now. Open-ended questions are used for gathering information, building rapport, and soliciting wide open responses when you're not really sure what the buyer requires from you value-wise. Close-ended questions, on the other hand, are great for getting confirmation or verification of your hypothesis of what value they want from you. They're great for checking that the buyer has understood you and for narrowing your responses to test for an alignment with the buyer and your product. Day to day, most people tend to ask more close-ended questions than open-ended ones. For example, you may ask, would you like a glass of water, to the dude or the woman sat next to you in the office, rather than asking an open-ended question of, how would you describe your level of thirst? Clearly, one is a lot more direct and functional than the other. This is due to habit that we ask more close-ended questions, and frankly, we're all moving fast through our lives, and close-ended questions can often be less demanding on both your brain to ask the question and the participant in the conversation's brain to get an answer back from as well. Now, in sales though, if you ask too many close-ended questions, you're going to start to narrow the depth of your conversations, and you're going to limit the amount of value that you can give to your buyer. Most salespeople need to learn, typically, to ask more open-ended questions, especially at the beginning of the sales process. Another side note here, because you can use questions to really manipulate people, to control them. And I want you to avoid doing that, because if you fool a buyer into an agreement, the kind of thing that was used rampantly in the 80s and 90s, then you're going to feel weird. The buyer's going to feel weird. They're just going to ask for a refund further down the line, and all of this kind of just turns into a huge mess. For example, if you ask the potential buyer, do you want to succeed in your job this year, and your product helps them potentially succeed in their job? Well, nobody's going to answer no. Everyone's going to answer yes, and they're going to feel like you're manipulating them because you're only giving them one answer. Well, you're giving them multiple answers, but they can only take one direction without looking stupid. Or an age-old classic, would you like to take delivery this week or next? This is called the assumptive close, and it makes people feel weird because it forces them to make a decision on your terms rather than theirs. If you do everything right in the sales process, you don't need to use weird stuff like this. So let's get rid of all those questions that you may have heard about, read about, or even used to manipulate people in the past. And quite frankly, where we are, especially at the time I record this, I don't care what product you sell, what company you work for, every marketplace is competitive. And if you make your potential partner feel weird by asking manipulative questions, they're going to stop answering their phone. They're going to buy from someone else. There's never before been a time where you're calling people on their mobiles. They will block you on their mobiles. They will just not answer their mobiles. It's not like a desk phone where they have to answer it and they don't have caller ID, they don't know who's coming in and whether it's an internal call or an external call. They're just going to ignore you if you try and do weird stuff with them. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click subscribe, leave a comment below what you thought about the video and the content itself, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.